Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our webinar today, Budgeting and Forecasting, specifically for Microsoft Dynamics GP. My name is Michael. I'm from Professional Advantage, and I'll be your host today. And I have Peter here with me, who will be doing the presentation for us. We're particularly excited about today's presentation because it's very much a demand-driven presentation. We're often asked within our Microsoft Dynamics GP community about budgeting and forecasting options for the GP solution. And as some of you would be aware, Microsoft had previously a forecaster solution, the FRX forecaster solution, and officially with the 2016 release of GP that was discontinued. There was warning prior to that it was going to be discontinued and effectively came in with the 2016 release. So from a vendor, there is no Microsoft specific solution for budgeting and forecasting for Dynamics GP. However, we have some good news for you because we're going to present to you today something that is working with Dynamics GP. It is a budgeting and forecasting solution for Dynamics GP. So before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping options here or notes. Firstly, at any time during the presentation, you can ask us a question. On the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar panel, there's a questions tab. In that questions tab, you can type a question there for us at any time during the presentation. And we will allow some time at the end of the session today to answer those questions for you. And secondly, we are recording the session today. We will send you a copy of the recording as part of our follow-up. It's something that either you could watch again or happy for you to send it around to someone else within your organisation that you may find interesting. In terms of the agenda today, just very quickly, we will do a quick overview of the solution and describe the solution and just provide some background and context as to what this budgeting and forecasting solution is that we have for you today for Dynamics GP. And then Peter will get straight into a demonstration and actually step through and show and demonstrate the P&L planning, a balance sheet, cash flow, and even some payroll snapshots there. And then, as I said, we will leave some time for questions and answers at the end. A little bit of a teaser as well, we do have a special offer right at the very end for those that have attended today's webinar. So please make sure you stay tuned right through to the very end. So what I'd like to do now is introduce and hand over to Peter. Peter's going to take us through the presentation today and talk us through the solution. Peter's had over 15 years experience working at PA in various roles, but really has a passion for budgeting, forecasting, planning, business intelligence, and integrating into solutions and presenting that at the board level. So Peter's going to take us through today's presentation, and I'll hand over to Peter now. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Michael. So I'll just take you through a bit of context as to where we find most of our clients. Most of our clients actually, they come to us through an Excel house. And what I mean by that is that Excel works very well up to a certain point. And when they reach that point, they tend to keep going with it until they at a breaking point. And that could be for a number of reasons. They get to a certain size or number of people involved or complexity. And the sorts of issues they come up with, things like they can't keep track of their current versions. They have all these spreadsheets floating around. There's just simply too many to actually work out what their current version is. Sometimes they have very large models and they all roll up and they would sort of work well, but they end up taking a very long time to load and doing changes. And sometimes they get so large that the actual spreadsheet just breaks and you get some very late nights. Another difficulty is that with Excel, it's just very hard to have multiple people accessing the same spreadsheet at the same time. So when you do have lots of people involved in budgeting and forecasting, that becomes a problem. A very common issue with Excel is that your links start breaking. They're just those who experience that know exactly what I mean by that. Another common one is that you have a beautiful working Excel spreadsheet, you send out your templates out, but your budget managers decide to overwrite certain calculations and you end up creating errors and things don't roll up correctly, and you'll get a number of errors in your spreadsheet, which hopefully you'll find before you present your budget, but that is definitely a risk. A very common issue is just the ability to consolidate, having all these spreadsheets, and it takes time to consolidate, and every time you make a change, you have to reconsolidate, and it can be a very time-consuming and can be error-ridden sort of job. The last one I'll just point out is just difficulties integrating the GP. Ultimately, often budgets are written back into GP, and you need all the coding structure to be exactly the same. But also bring in, when you're forecasting, bring in year-to-date actuals. That's the level of detail that you require. So that can also be a problem. So why import DEPM? Just start off with just the name DEPM is Dynamics Enterprise Performance Management by Infor. And look, it basically solves all those issues. There's the ability to consolidate in real time, and we'll see this when we go through the demo. Just naturally, we almost don't even notice it actually happening. I'll try and point it out. Just one source of truth. Everything's in a centralized database, so it's always one place to go to the source of truth. We have that tied integration with GP, so it's always our coding is always correct. We have budget control, so we actually set when a budget or forecast is open and entries allowed, and we'll close it. Ability to top-down forecast, and I'll just cover that in the demo. Budgets are always accessible in real time. It's always there, centralized, available to everybody. That feeds into actually report distribution as well, where it's always available in real time. As numbers are entered, it's available. Your parameters are centralized and controlled, so you don't want just anybody changing certain parameters, so you can control that. So we get some very large improvements. We find that these are actually case studies, specific clients, and they do differ. Like the first one used to take 2 days to start up a new budget and set up templates. Now it's taking 15 minutes. So this is a real example. I've had people taking a week or even sometimes longer setting up all the templates and correctly before they send it out. Uploading budgets in management reports, so ultimately to report, we're actually getting all those coding structures right 3 days for 3 people, now taking 30 minutes. Preparation of your budget imports and then actually make that into a presentation pack to present to management. And it took 19 days and now 90 minutes. So these are the sorts of things that you can achieve with the product. So I'll just jump straight into the demonstration now. The very first thing to notice is that it's actually a web-based application, and so I'm running it today using Chrome. It could be Internet Explorer or other browsers. So we jump to a home page which can be tailored to your needs. So this is just simply showing that this is quick on navigation. You can actually navigate via the home page, or you can actually navigate from the menu up here. So what I'll do is, first thing first, is just show you a little bit about the setup and how we integrate into GP. So there'll be different clients obviously have a different setup. This is just an example setup, and in this example, we have 4 segments that are set up, and these are relate to your account segments. So we have, in our case, we have company, cost center, line of business, and we're not using 4 segments. And also the legal entity, we can bring in multiple GP databases. So this would relate to how you would your configuration. And also we can then select what is appropriate. So for profit and loss entry, all 3 of our segments are appropriate. For balance sheets, maybe only the company segment is appropriate, and payroll may be separate again. And lastly, we can actually put security over all these dimensions, or none, or in this case, we've just got the one security over the company dimension. That way, we can limit what's our users see. I'll just show you next the way we map the accounts in from GP. So we set up a structure. Here we've just got a bit of an expense structure happening, and we just import or just set up the different account ranges that you bring in. So you can have a number of different account ranges, but in nice ranges, and it makes it life a little bit easier. So that's a pretty straightforward operation. I'll just show you one other thing, and this is looking at our company dimension. We have can define a hierarchy. It's all user definable. Again, we just map in the codes coming into GP, what that hierarchy is. And very simply, I'll just actually jump back to the home page and just navigate this way now. To bring in the data, simply specifying the period range. So you can bring in a whole year. It's very, very quick. And just hit upload, and it uploads your data. Alternatively, as well as we can actually have an automated process that brings in your data every night is a typical sort of situation, so you can get that sort of daily reporting happening. So I mentioned before about controlling your budgets and forecasts and specifying what is open and what's not. So here we can see that our budget is open, and simply if we want to stop entry, we just click on the budget, and then now it's closed. If we wanted to say Q1 forecast to be open, we just click on that, and now it's open, and we can set the months that it should be open for. Notice that we've got some versions here. We've got Q1 forecast, Q2, Q3, but these are user definable. So you may do monthly forecast, you may do half year forecasting, and you can set up any number of versions you like. So you might have a number of different scenarios. So that's completely how you'd like it configured. I'll just reopen the budget. The next thing, this is probably a little bit more difficult to explain, but what this version settings screen is used for is that the ability to actually configure top-down forecasting. So typically in a budget scenario that we would actually go for a very detailed budget and build it up, but come to a high-level forecast, what often happens, you want to actually be at a more global level, and maybe that's like maybe you want to actually be an individual legal entity or company, but the ability to actually enter or overwrite numbers at, for all cost centers. And this screen actually controls what is allowed to happen. So in this case, I have to select the company, but I must select but I can actually do a group of cost centers and overwrite a figure, uplift it, or change it. So the next screen I'll go into is a profit and loss entry, direct entry screen. So on the screen, we select the version we're in, the year, and our report filters, so what company, cost centers, and line of business. In this case, we're actually consolidating all our companies, cost centers, and line of business. And we can select we've got two comparison columns, which are all user selectable. So you can actually select what are your year and version. So I'm looking at 2015-16 actuals. Maybe I want to look at the 16-17 actuals. And it's simply a matter of changing that, and you can see that updating. This is looking at the 16-17 budget. And I've got a blank 17-18 budget, and this is what I'm actually budgeting for. Maybe what we want to do is put an increase factor, so we type in 3%, and we want to increase our revenue by 3%. It's simply a case of just clicking in on this button here, and it could be on any sort of account or even group of accounts. In this case, I'm actually uplifting all of the revenue counts by 3%. We can see that variance now between our two comparison columns. And maybe what you want to do is enter the expenses only by 2%. Just as an example. So I'll just click on expenses now. And we will see that our expenses have been uplifted. And maybe you'd go through different, maybe payrolls a different percentage, and you just go and change that, and away you go. I'm actually hiding the periods just so you can actually sort of see a little bit less number of fields. So, but here I'm showing now the all the periods. And what it's done is actually remembered the previous seasonality from our 16-17 budget, and it's uplifted and it kept the same proportion. We might want to actually go and actually overwrite some of these figures. So just as an example, I've got promotions here as 851. Maybe just change it to a round number. What it's done now is actually, we call it splashing. It's pushed or splashed those changes across the different months, but kept the same proportion. Maybe you don't like that proportion, so you can override it each month, or what you also can do is use the reallocation method, where we have set up some reallocation methods, and these are all user definable. So these are just some examples. So we've got one of even, 445. We've got first in the month. So what we're seeing here is the blue graph here, bar is the original amount, and because we chose first quarter month, we can see the orange is the reallocated month, amount being the first in the month. I'll just change it to even and OK that. And now that's actually evenly spread 120 million across each of the months. You can actually change the amount, so I might just change that to 15 million. And that just automatically updates the annual amount to now 125 million. Now I'll just take away or hide the periods now to show a bit of space. So you can just show you can actually enter commentary. So you can just enter your comments here, and as we enter those comments, the column will just resize to match the column size. Another thing that you may want to do is more detailed planning. So in this case, we might actually have a number of promotions making up an amount. So what we can do is drill down to the very last level, and as you can see, as I change the amounts or the filters up the top, the amounts will change. So I'll just drill down now to the last level, choose our line of business. And now I'll just click on the promotions account and enter some details. So you can have unlimited number of detail lines. So just as an example, let's go. I'll just enter promo 1. Maybe that's 24,000. You can see that's spread evenly. And promo 2. Maybe that's 36,000. And there it goes, adds up the figures. So I close that, and I'll get the result written back into the main entry sheet. You can see here, we can see some detail sitting behind it, and we can click on it and actually go back and see that detail and amend it. So one thing to remember is that what we see here is really just some predefined content, and what we do is we actually tailor to exactly your requirements. So the profit and loss statement, for example, would be tailored to actually how it should look for you. We might have different entry templates. Something might be something much more specific. It's a modeling tool, so we can use it for all sorts of different models. So the main thing to take from this is it can be changed to meet your requirements. So what I'll do next is show you an example of a payroll model, and it's a very typical situation where most people, payroll is a very important part of their budget. an example of using parameters. So, for example, the budget administrator may set up these parameters in advance. So set up, your superannuation, send the workers' comp. Set up your CPI, so you can see here CPI kicking in at 12.5% starting in December. And also how we want to prorate the salaries over our periods. So we can see here number of, really this is one that's based on number of pays in the period. So we pay fortnightly in some, and eventually we'll have 26 pays in the whole year. And some months actually have 3 pays. So that will then, when we actually process our, or enter our salaries, that will automatically put in the right amount each month. What a typical thing to do with payroll is that we would have a starting point. Our starting point are our existing employees. So we would upload a file from our payroll system. And importantly, in this case, we're uploading a file, but we could actually integrate to a payroll system. But it's not just payroll. So you may have a CRM system, a sales system. We could be integrating into those systems and pulling data directly from those systems. Not just numbers, but also, statistical or non-financial information. So it's a matter of just, in this case, selecting a file. We just go and select the file. And we would then actually just go and upload that file up. And the result is that we would actually, when we go into payroll entry, we'll just change this and see all cost centers, all companies. And now we can see our entire payroll with a list of employees, maybe position, their company cost center, salary, FTE, etc. And you can go and you can edit this directly, or you can maybe select just the cost center that you're interested in. And you can see the existing employees, and we've added some new employees. You can go and change the FTE, and as we can see, it's working out the on-cost based on those percentages we entered earlier. The one of the final things just want to show is workflow. What we can have is the ability to see, so let's go back to see all our cost centers. So you can actually monitor the progress, and we can see here we've actually processed some of our cost centers already in our payroll, but we haven't started our profit and loss entry yet. And we can have a number of different models and actually monitor that process. We could also extend this to include an approval process. So you may have managers that approve and lock those cost centers. So we've only really concentrated at the moment on a profit and loss statement, and many people need to produce a balanced balance sheet and a cash flow statement, and we can do that. So what we have is a rules-based cash flow system, and what that means is that we set up some user-defined rules, and that will actually determine the transactions that get generated. It's probably better if I show you. So under administration, we have some cash flow setups. So I've set up some rules here. I've got different rules. So I've got some revenue rules, expense rules, prepayments, rules for opening balance. I'll just take you through one rule very briefly. And what the assumption here is based on revenue accounts, and we expect to receive 80% of our income the following month, and the remaining 20% in the second month. You can see this 80% here and the 20% here. So what we're taking, we're grossing up our debtors by 110% on the month of when we receive the accrue for the revenue. We're taking the GST, And then the following month, then the debtors are again drawn down and we receive money in our bank accounts, and we also pay the GST. So that's very quickly an example of a cash flow rule. So these are your rules that you define, but it's very, very powerful. And the next thing to do would be to allocate those rules against accounts. So we have some rules against our revenue accounts. Importantly, you don't have to set up a rule against every single account code. So you can set it up against the group of accounts, and if necessary, you can override a rule at account level. That makes that setup much easier. And then you just simply run the cash flow, and as a previous run here, you just go ahead and just run it, and at the end of it, you will get a balanced balance sheet. So that means we can run a indirect cash flow statement. The advantage of an indirect cash flow statement is that you can use it for your actuals, your budgets, and your forecasts. The other thing you can do, though, is that you can actually, because it's a rule-generated system, actually generates your indirect cash flow statement. So I'll just show you a different example here, scenario 1 of actually our generated indirect cash flow statement. So this is a detailed cash flow statement. You can see our revenue accounts. We've got nothing in our first month because we expect to receive payment in the following month. But yet our opening balance, we can see here the effect of an opening balance happening in the first month. So the nice thing about indirect cash flow statement, well, one, it falls out automatically. Two, that it's very detailed. You can see exactly what the effect of each of your accounts. And the other nice thing about it is you actually can come in here and actually drill down on these amounts. And actually, if I click on here, this will show me the source amounts, the period, the actual account code, and the rule that's applied, and then the effect of it. And you can see the 288 amounts here, total being resolved. The nice thing about this rule-based system is that you can have set up different scenarios. So we can actually have different rules with our different scenarios. So we might have a best case, worst case, or what we think is going to happen scenario. So this is the situation here. We actually set up different rules and run different scenarios, and this is a different effect on our bank balance. So that is, in a nutshell, the budgeting and forecasting story. But before I move on, just one thing to actually consider, that there's also a tool for reporting. Because you're entering budgets and forecasts, you actually also need to report. So there are various reports, a profit and loss statement, and another one is a comparative statement. So these are reports that we have sort of predefined content for. There's analytical style statements. So I'll just show you very quickly an example of one. So here I'm looking at, these are all user definable. So I've just selected revenue for my scenario 1. And maybe I want to, this is looking at by cost center, and maybe I just want to look at by line of business. And I can see here now by variance analysis by a line of business. Just one final one is the ABC analysis. I'm just showing some sort of some ability to do some sort of graphing. Again, we can drag and drop and actually see it in a by a different way. And finally, just an example from Info, actually, just on dashboards. So this is actually called a self-service dashboard. In this case, where you actually can create, as an end user, create your own wizards. Today, I won't take you through that, but essentially in end user you can actually create your own widgets. So here's just one example. To show you one other example of a dashboard. And these dashboards interactive, so you can actually click on them and actually sort of see the results changing as you click on the dashboard. So that's it for the demonstration. So I'll just hand over.
Well, thank you, Peter. I particularly like the cash flow piece. I know that's something that a lot of organisations that we work with ask the question around that, and I like the way we can actually create our own rules there, and that's managed as part of the organisation's requirements as opposed to the software dictating, so it's quite powerful. So just a reminder, on the right-hand side of your screen, in the questions panel, if you want to type in your question there, we've got some time now to have a look through those questions and answer them in the next few minutes. So I'll just go through some of those now. Okay, Peter, we've got a question here around scenarios. So is there a limit on the number of scenarios that you can create?
You can have as many scenarios as you like. So these are all use definable, and there's no limit. So as many as you like.
Okay, excellent. Next one around, referencing Excel here. Can I import data from Excel?
Yeah, very much so. So one of the things is that what can happen is that you may have some very specific models that you still want to use in Excel. So you can still develop those models. You could actually do the model in for DEPM, or you actually still leave it outside in Excel and then just import the results into DEPM.
Okay, excellent. Another question here I can see come through around multi-currency. So does it support, so do we support multi-currency?
Yeah, so very much so. So basically it's about setting up the exchange rates and setting up the rules, and we can certainly do multi-currency. So we do have a number of clients that do have multi-currency.
Okay, excellent. Okay, another question's come through here. This is obviously important to a lot of our GP clients. Can I import multiple GP databases?
You certainly can, and we do have clients that have that situation where they do have multiple GP databases and yet have a centralized system and get that consistent result. The great thing about it is that just that natural consolidation that just occurs, so you get that instantaneous result.
Excellent, and look, that's certainly an important one. The way GP is structured, it's very easy to have multiple databases there and good to be able to consolidate. Next one, it's similar to the importing data from Excel, but I'll just clarify again. Can we bring data in from other systems other than GP? So maybe other finance systems?
Yeah, so it's really quite open. It could be in other finance systems. It could be you might have very specific systems, operational systems. It could be even from your payroll system. So the example I sort of showed was just bringing a file. So it's a very simple method, but it can be more of a direct access to those other systems and databases that you have.
Okay, excellent. Just a question here around reporting. So I see there's some reporting. Has any other clients used it for reporting with GP? Well, that's a question for the crowd there asking about experience for others.
Yeah, so we do have lots of clients that use it as a reporting system. So it's not just a budgeting forecasting system. So I just wanted to show in the demo briefly that it's also very useful as a reporting system. So you can use it for both.
So reporting from a financial reporting perspective?
So it really can be anything. So I mean, time is spent on financial reporting, but it can be on anything. So it's also, you know, a BI system, so you can bring in data from anywhere and report on it any way you like. So financial, non-financial data, different systems, very much so. Okay, excellent. So just to connect that to our GP clients, obviously we're focusing on budgeting and forecasting here right now, but we could extend beyond the management reporter capability that you currently have with GP and do financial reporting, or even beyond that further, and do some more analytical reporting beyond the financial work. Okay, another question has come in. Does it export budgets back to GP? So can you write back into GP? So what we do there would create a file in the format that's required by GP, and then simply in GP import that budget file. So it's a pretty straightforward process. Okay, excellent. All right, another question here, specifically with respect to the reporting piece. And this is an interesting question for you to answer here, Peter. How easy is it to load data from GP, or is it linked? So it's very easy. So one of the screens shows a data load screen, and it's simply you just select the periods that you want to import, and you just click import, and it will just load. It loads very quickly. Actually, we've had some very large companies, lots of transactions, and it's incredibly quick. It's linked in the fact that we, in certain respects, we do load the data, but when we look at a report, you can actually drill into that number and actually drill back into GP and look at the journals out of GP. So it's quite a nice feature to do that. Okay, excellent. Another question here. I might have to unpack this question for you, Pete. The question is, can we use for job number? And that may be a very specific question there for GP. Maybe it's analytical accounting if that's being used, and or a job in project accounting and or a job in Wensoft. So okay. That might be a tough one. That's okay. So what I showed today was simply taking it from the GP ledger. So that's using the accounts string. If we're not talking about the ledger, so it could be a job number built into that account structure. If it's not that, we can still bring in data from any system. So it could be a job system, and very much you bring in your job number and analyze by your job number. So yes, we can do it either way. Okay, and there was a clarification there, specifically budgeting based on job number. So I think that's the... Yeah, so those job numbers have to come from somewhere. So wherever the data source, you'd load up your job numbers, and then you budget by those job numbers, and results are ultimately written back to an account. And so you can do that. Okay. Just a reminder on the right-hand side of the screen, if anyone's got any other questions, just send them through. We've got another couple of minutes here. Just while we're on the or while we're kind of summing up here, we did put through a poll at the very beginning of the session, and the poll was around the top 3 challenges or concerns that you currently have, and we have some results on that we might just like to quickly share with you. So what we've seen here, we have 50% of people have difficulty with multiple people accessing their budgets. So that's the highest one. So that's half of people. Again, you can see now on the screen, 42% can't keep track of the current version, and I kind of a bit surprised about the access issue. I actually would have thought the current version is quite more of a common one. consolidation, yes, I'm very much aware of consolidation is definitely a big issue. Yeah, overriding calculations, they're all very common issues, so no surprise there. But 70%, well done. So 17% of people that are not actually having issues, they're working well. So it tends to be when you get to a certain size or number of users that these sorts of issues come to play.
Okay, excellent. Look, we've probably just got time for one more question here. So we'll just cover off on this last one. It's a bit of a longer question. It's a scenario. We get individual managers to build their budgets. Can this be distributed to managers for them to build their own budgets? And a bit of a follow-on, we'd need security. Is this possible?
Yeah, so definitely this is, one of the power of the tool. So you would actually have individual budget managers preparing their own budgets. And so because it's all a centralized database, there's no such thing really as distributing. Basically, it's allowing them access, and that's all to do with security. So there could be different forms they can only access, or it could be maybe only certain cost centers, maybe only certain people will do payroll, for example, maybe certain people will do sales. So it's one of the earlier slides was about budget preparation time. Well, simply there is no budget preparation time other than setting maybe your parameters and opening up the budget version, maybe importing the actuals, and you're right to go. So there's actually no time required to actually prepare for a budget. It's just now opening it up and allowing people now to start budgeting.
Brilliant. Thank you. And look, thank you, Peter, for handling those questions there on the fly. It's one thing to prepare for the presentation, it's another then to handle the questions at the end. So I just want to quickly wrap up, but at the same time, let you know of a special that we do have. So as part of our follow-up to the session, we talk about what happens next. So if you like what you've seen and you'd like to talk to your account manager, we'd love that to happen, and we'll follow up with you regardless. The other thing that we'll do, if you're not currently working with someone from Professional Advantage, if you're not currently engaged with us, we will follow up as part of the natural course of this event and reach out to you. But we do have a special offer. So the solution that Peter's presented today, we are offering a 20% discount off the list price for any and every order placed between now and the 1st of December, so within the next few months. So for anyone, as I said, that's engaged with us already, talk to your account manager regarding that. And for anyone else that we're not currently working with, we'll follow up as part of the follow-up to this session today. In terms of our contact details, if you would like to reach out to us as a follow-up, coming back the other way, you have our email there if you're not working with an account manager, and our inquiries phone number there as well. So on that note, I'd just like to say a couple of thank yous. Thank you for attending the session today and taking a look at our budgeting and forecasting offering for Dynamics GP. And a quick thank you there to Peter as well for the presentation, taking us through the session today and answering those questions there at the end. So on that note, thank you to everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll talk to you about budgeting and forecasting very shortly. Bye.